Welcome back to our second week of Mountains Made of Glass in our Tundra Dip book club by Scarlett St. Clair. So last week we talked about the first 4 chapters. And so if you haven't seen our last podcast or you haven't read any of the book up to the last 4 chapters, actually we're going to go through chapter 11. No, not through 11. 10. Dana's like, I did not prepare for 11. Through chapter 10. If you did not read that far, hang up now. Do not proceed further. Turn around.
Do not go.
Go straight to jail because you're here and you shouldn't be. Okay, so as always, Dana's going to start us with our little recap, and then we're going to go back and talk about it more specifically.
Oh, yeah, and there's a lot to talk about these chapters. So a really quick rundown. Chapter 5, we meet the Selkie. We get to roam around our little castle area. We meet our little Selkie friend who, I can't wait to tell you my thoughts on him. And we strike a bargain. Mm-hmm. We then jump into chapter 6, where we will go into we'll go into the beast's point of view. Oops. We'll go into the beast's point of view. We will learn a little bit more about him and who else might be lurking in the castle. Mm-hmm. Then into 7, where we are back in Gisella's mind. We are
dancing.
Dinner. We're dancing. We're having a grand old time. We are maybe getting a little bit insulted. More on that to come. Into 8, where we're waking up, not in the best shape, going back to our Selkie friend and calling in that bargain we made to go off to the Glass Mountains. Woo woo. Woo.
Big deal.
Big deal. Chapter 9, we jump into Casimir's point of view again. Yes, I am saying a name now.
Yeah.
Where I don't fully remember what happened. Oh, Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is one that we're just going to kind of have to dive into a bit, because there's not much I can say on the short end of things, but there's another part being made.
A little bit about chicka wow wow in the form of exchange.
And some bargains that come along with that.
Mm-hmm. And not an exchange, kind of a one-way exchange.
A bit one-way exchange. Mm-hmm. And then finally on to chapter 10, where we're back at the Glass Mountain, and things don't really go as planned.
No.
And maybe some unaliving at a different point.
There's a whole lot that happens. Basically, Dana was saying this is the chapters of bargains. There's tons of bargains.
Bargains, info dumps, to the point of, like, if you watched last episode, I had a little bit more of a detailed rundown. There's too much going on to do a more in-depth rundown. We would be here for an hour.
And it's like, I noticed that I highlighted a lot less in this because I feel like I didn't really wonder as much. I feel like she really was spelling it out. Like, there wasn't a lot of, like, tricky word usage or anything. It was just really like, this is how it is.
It was very, like, point blank, this is how it is. There's nothing you have to question other than, where can I get a wardrobe filled with creatures that will tailor clothes to my own size?
In, like, 2 seconds. Moody ones.
Yeah. But it was all, like, very well, like, it was believable. We're finally into the book now where we know how the world is. It's believable. We are here. We're in it.
Mm-hmm. She's been multiple days. Mm-hmm. And is it 1 or 2 days? 2 days.
3. I think it's 3 days. Yeah, the clock is ticking. I think we end up with 3 days because I want to say chapter 10 starts on our 3rd day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. So
So,
we start with the Selkie. So she kind of starts
like,
deciding she's gonna like leave the castle, but first she meets the
tortured
brownie.
by pixies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Her window's broken, and this is our first kind of glimpse into other fae creatures that are not elves.
Mm-hmm.
Are these pixies? And
Mm-hmm.
quite
And
like the, huh?
it seems like they suck. She had the red caps too. All of them
Yeah,
suck.
all terrible. But pixies by nature and stories are mischievous. They're troublemakers. So they're pranking her, they're getting in her face, they're quite literally laughing at her
Mm-hmm.
as she gets into chaos.
Mm-hmm. And that's just her waking up. This is her first.
This is her wake
This is her first wake up.
this is her first wake up in the castle.
Yeah, this is her first wake up in the castle. So yeah, this is her first wake up. She's being attacked by pixies.
Attacked by pixies who only scatter once our loved beast is around.
Yep.
The beast is here. The creatures do not bother her.
Mm-mm. And he's asked if she's picking fights, which is kind of like adding insult to injury because it's like they were just picking a fight with her.
Yes, but she might have threatened to pluck their wings and make a crown out of them.
True, which I, you
Like,
know, morally gray female main character.
honestly, I'm here for it.
Yep, 100%. She's just moody. She got woken up on the wrong side of the bed.
She woke up on the wrong side of a bed and is just kind of over it.
Yep. And
But
then she gets Neve, her brownie.
her brownie, who is here to be basically her handmaid,
It's basically her Mrs. Potts.
her quite literally her Mrs. Potts. Ugh, I love a good Mrs. Potts. It's her
Mm-hmm.
Alice. For those of you who
Mm-hmm.
are ACOTAR fans,
Her Alice, her
they
Mrs.
everything
Potts.
ACOTAR in this series. Do not worry.
Yeah, and she's a little more like she's kind of gruff,
She
right?
is a tell it as it is type of
Just
lady.
like Alice. Mm-hmm.
She has no filter, and I love that. But along with Knave, we meet the wardrobe gremlin creatures who are never given a name.
Nor a description, really, are they?
We get like a pointed nose, sharp teeth summer, I think. But it's not, we don't really see them so much as we see them throwing things. And all the things being clothes or
Mm-hmm.
clothes.
Right. They're a little mischievous on what they're trying to get her to wear sometimes.
Especially if they care to tolerate her or not.
Mm-hmm. Basically, they just want her to be naked.
They
Yeah.
do. And that might be because that's what their master wants. But like, again,
Yep.
he fell first and harder, can you blame him?
Uh-huh. And then it's funny because Neve is trying to get her to sit, and then he says, "Forgive her. She's a bit dull." Like she's dumb.
And they're 110% talking about Giselle here. They're
She's dumb. Sorry,
like,
she's a little dumb.
like talking about her as if she's not in the room.
Mhm.
You can only imagine makes her love him even more.
And then she says, "I hate you."
Point blank.
That's the first time we get "I hate you."
And even to the point where once she has her clothes, are you gonna sit here and watch me get dressed?
Uh-huh. Which also I kind of understand from his perspective. He watched you bathe.
And he says that.
Yeah.
I've already seen you bathe.
What's the point?
We also get our little tad bit of, hey, as long as you're prisoner, I use air quotes here, you can go really wherever you want, just don't leave the castle grounds. Why does that sound familiar?
Typical.
Typical beast and a
Uh-huh.
beast retelling fashion. Somebody,
Basically, you won't be safe unless you're with me.
oh,
Is essentially
oh,
the
he doesn't do
attitude.
that, does he?
Huh?
He tells her she can't leave the castle grounds at all.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, unless you're within my vicinity, we're not safe here. You need to stay.
You're not safe without me, and then you're really only safe in my realm with me here.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you might hate me, but you can't get rid of me.
Ah, surprise! You're my prisoner, and I'm your little like person who has to be inside your cage at all times.
Like the toad she wanted to try.
That's what I'm trying to say. I remember tying that in my head was the fact that she's a prisoner, right? And she wanted to keep the toad as a prisoner. I thought that was just so
Wait,
interesting that she wanted to keep the
wait,
toad
wait,
as
wait. Didn't she wish to keep the toad as a prisoner?
potentially.
Is the curse coming full circle because now she's trapped like a prisoner?
Potentially. She
Did the
did want wish to, yeah.
oh,
And
did
then she
everyone
accidentally killed it. Like it was very sudden how like all of a sudden it was almost like she was overcome with so much emotion that she just killed it. It was like very quick.
But you know what else we get this chapter? A name.
A name.
We
A
get
name.
a name. Our beast is no longer only referred to as the beast. He is now Casimir.
He says, "You will call me Casimir."
He goes as so far to say, call me Beast again, and I'll show you why I was given that nickname.
And then she
So,
wants to antagonize him.
obviously she called him Beast again, and
Hmm.
things got a little bit steamy.
She did it on purpose to be steamy. She
Oh yeah,
wanted to see what he
she's
would do.
pushing those boundaries and not liking when they fight back.
Yeah, she's a little brat.
I mean, some people are into that.
Doing some bratting around.
And not only do we get that, but we get clue number 1,
Mm-hmm.
his true name, which is it's 7 letters.
Yep. Which 7 letters, 7 brothers, 7 years, which is what she says here. Not 7 years.
7 years. Where'd the extra year come from?
We don't know. That's what we're confused about. 7, 7, 7. Those are backwards. They look like F's.
Ooh, wait. Wait, those don't look backwards. Not for me.
Good.
Wait,
Can you
hold on.
read these?
Yes, I can
Whoa.
all of that.
Oh, perfect. Didn't think you could.
777 is also an angel number, which
Mm-hmm.
are strong signs from the universe of intuition, connection, and growth.
Boom! Roasted. That's amazing. There
So,
you go.
as much as we keep repeating 7, hello, trust your instincts. There's obviously a clear connection.
Growth.
We're gonna grow together.
So the big debate is, did we screw up in the first couple chapters with saying it was going to be 6 years? I doubt it. But how'd we get to 7?
How'd we get from 6 to 7? Where did that extra year come from?
We're confused.
Authors, I am not convinced something's that simple, or that it's not even simple. It's pretty big.
Like made it through an editor.
Made it
There's no.
an editor and a reread, possibly.
Because I think I can't remember. Yeah, she does have a publisher. Yeah, so yeah.
Who didn't catch that?
That's why I'm thinking that it's not like a caught thing. Like I don't know. I think something's weird.
It's purposeful, and I just haven't found the purpose yet.
Yeah, it's purposeful, but we haven't figured it out.
But
So she does.
we
Or
also
she
had our bargain,
Yeah.
which was in order for Gisela to call him by his name, he had to give her something.
Mm-hmm.
Which he said, I will give you your greatest desire. And
Oof.
the 2 words love to reverse pretty little heads throughout this book.
Mm-hmm. Greatest desire.
Greatest desire is mentioned multitude of times, especially in these sets of chapters.
People often offer to give their greatest desire, which I think is a trick in and of itself. So I feel like he's trying to give her like fairy tricks.
And it's one of those, is it just this is how we trick our wording? But
Mm-hmm.
again, and this is the first time we also see him fulfill, or we'll see a Fae fulfill their end of the bargain before before the counterpart. So she
Right.
say his name first. He tells her first, 7 years, showing
Uh-huh.
that sign of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she hates him, he's trusting her enough to say, I'm giving you this, now you give me what you owe me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
She's like, it's weird because bargains are obviously like currency. And
Mm-hmm.
it feels like one can come up at any point. Like,
And it can be claimed, especially things where it's like, well, you'll just owe me in the future, are claimed at any point. And maybe that's also just coming piggybacked off of the book I just finished recently, Bow Before the Elven Queen,
oh
where,
yeah.
oh, don't get me started on that, but where that was very much like, there is a bargain left up of, well, you'll just come when I call.
Mm-hmm.
And that did not turn out in her favor.
Nope.
But
He
no good.
says, "Come when I call," and then he's gone.
Yeah. And we're left to wander the castle.
Yep. Which his castle is like super weird, but I don't try to picture it to be honest myself.
I
Sometimes I like, block things out.
think of it like a little garden maze.
Yeah, basically, it seems like it's like open air. It's just all outside. That's what I feel
There's a
like.
bunch of teleporting so that we don't actually need to know what the castle looks like.
Yeah, sure. Ooh, sorry. So she does a lot of moving around, blah blah blah. We're looking around, and then is there anything that happens before she gets to Selkie?
No. Well, she does have that brief moment where, as she's on the journey to the Selkie and through the castle,
She's mad at her father.
her dad
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. So she's left all alone. She's been left all alone. Her mom died during childbirth or shortly after her being born.
Mm-hmm.
We
She
learn
says she wished her sister dead. She does
she
say that.
wished her sister dead, which why we don't make wishes now because a wish went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's heavily implied that Dad unalived himself.
He died of a broken heart, basically. Yeah, I
Dad
think.
unalived himself.
Yeah. I think that's. I'm realizing as I get older that that's kind of what that means.
In a lot of cases, yes. I have heard, I've actually had a similar death in a family like that, which I
Mhm.
think was actually cancer related, but it was,
Sure.
uh, it's weird. We're not going to go into that part. um,
But that it is a thing where like people stop taking care of themselves because they're
yeah,
broken hearted. That
they're
is the thing.
hearted, it's
Yeah.
whatever, and it's death of the broken heart. And is it a medical anomaly? Who
Maybe.
knows?
Maybe. So then she moves into the Selkie. Um,
Oh, the Selkie.
but she maybe does some dumb. Oh no, yeah, Selkie first,
No, she very much tries to sneak up on this Selkie at first.
and then
To
he sneaks up
where she,
on her. He pulls a switcheroo,
huh?
and then he sneaks up on her. Right? He pulls a
Yeah,
switcheroo.
like
Yeah.
back down to like pick up rocks to bash his head in because rocks are a weapon of choice in this book.
Mhm.
So she
And she shoved mud in her ears.
mm-hmm. She bends down to get these rocks, and all of a sudden he goes from being in front of her to being behind her.
Hmm.
And for those of you who don't know what a selkie is and did not read the glossary, I will lovingly call a selkie a white van with the words free candy spray painted on it that your parents tell you not to go to.
Yeah. And it somehow has a hot stranger in it, but the stranger will kill you.
Yeah. We don't trust hot strangers. Listen, the selkie the selkie is the MMC of a dark romance book, except we're not in a dark romance book, and you should not trust him.
Red flags are actually red flagging in this book.
Red flags in the Selkie are actual red flags.
Yeah. And so he mesmerizes her with his songs, and she shoves mud up her ears
And
to not get snapped out of it.
and very much is like keeping that sanity about her. She understands that like he is a predator. He is not good. He is trying to lure her or whomever in. But she has her wits enough about her to try and grab these rocks. But that attention, her splitting her attention, causes him to make the jump. And quite literally ended with her jumping and falling and him on top.
And then they struggle and talk a little bit, right?
There is a bit of struggle. I don't know if there's much talking,
But
but
they struggle, and then she grabs his sealskin.
she gets to the point where she can do one of two things. Bash his brains in, which she was going to do.
She's practiced. Why isn't she using her well-trusted practice move?
She quite literally says, and I don't have it pulled up because of course I'm in the wrong chapter, but she gets to the point where she's on top. She, knees him. She gets the advantage. She has the rock in her hand, and she's going for it. But then his skin catches her eye. And with having his skin, you know what she can do?
Yeah, hurt him, really. Bargain with him.
Bargain.
Well, really, she could hurt him. That's why she's able to make a bargain. But he immediately, it says, "You terrible thing." Which reminds me so much of, like, I don't know, Alice. The Selkie encounters remind me of Alice in Wonderland.
It's the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Yeah. So he calls her a terrible thing. You terrible thing. What do you want? You terrible thing. And he kind of is like, in the beginning, he was kind of coming up as like a big, strong, powerful man, right? And then she beats him, and then he's like, you terrible thing. And he's like whining now.
He is a mama's boy in my eyes.
Uh-huh.
Like, he did not get it. Okay, he is, like,
he didn't get his way.
He's throwing a temper tantrum. And one thing that seems to be very true to Gisella's character is she will threaten you to make sure her point comes across. Because, and she even tells him, she has his skin, and she goes, "You want it back, you're going to give me, like, what I want, and if you don't tell me the truth, like, I will hunt you down, I will find your skin, I will shred it, and you will never enjoy another moment in life."
And then he says, "I will give you what? Your greatest desire."
Greatest desire. Here it goes back
He's
again.
trying to trick her.
He is, and he's successful almost. He actually succeeds because I don't think she was actually paying attention to this new bargain. Because she goes, "I want to know Casimir's name."
And he doesn't know it.
And he goes, "I said I'd give you your greatest desire. That's not your greatest desire." And that's where the whole trick element is, because she even says so in her thoughts. How does he know? How's he to know what my greatest desire is? He doesn't. We don't even know her greatest desire.
Makes him believe that it is her greatest desire, because he ends up trying to help her.
Yeah, and one could argue that, well, knowing his name is her greatest desire, because right now her greatest desire is to be free. And she can't achieve that freedom without knowing his name, which we come to find out he doesn't know his name, but the Glass Mountains might.
Which is such a Hail Mary, by the way. Let's send this woman to the Glass Mountains.
Somewhere, like, away from here, but also he has no guarantee that the Glass Mountains know.
He's also kind of basically trying to get just through this bargain so he can, like, fuck her up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We gotta get through this bargain, and then I can do whatever the fuck I want.
But he ends up making another bargain. Because right there at the end of the chapter, he tells her the Glass Mountain might, she goes, "I can't get there in a day. Like, I'm not allowed to leave the castle grounds. He goes, no, 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 no. I can get you there and back. Don't you worry about that. And she goes, okay, what's it going to cost me? Like, what will this cost me? And another little highly highlighted part in Amazon. For now, your smile, he said, but one day when you rule this castle, you will return me to the sea.
Easy enough for her to say.
Yeah, sure, totally. I'm never going to rule this castle.
Oh, nor do we really care if he returns to the sea. We didn't kidnap him. Who cares?
Not my problem.
That's Casimir's problem.
But he left a stipulation when you rule this.
Mm-hmm.
In her head, she's never going to rule.
Yeah, in her mind, no. And even in Casimir's mind, no.
As of right now, not at all. He's wasting his days away.
And now Casimir is upset because she was talking to the Selkie, and I think he's jealous of the Selkie, which is very interesting to me.
I think he's fully jealous of anybody that she's willingly talking to. It's giving Tamlin. Sarah decided to go hunting with Lucian. But
yep.
when she straight up denied him, like, he's like, hey, do you want to go out and, like, go hunting? And she goes,
no thanks.
Goes over to Lucian, like, hey, Lucian, can we go for a ride?
I'm looking for my laptop charger, by the way. I'm like,
And he's watching her leave this little garden completely drenched, mind you. She is from head to toe, where it says her clothes were clinging to her to form like a second skin. And there was rage within him.
Rage.
That the flowers and trees and fairies and the Selkie had seen her in such a state.
Yep, and he's mad that anybody would see his woman. Did we already go through this though? Wasn't he mad about this before, or maybe he's mad about it again later? Can't remember. He's very possessive, this one.
He gets possessive of her later on.
Yeah.
In the next chapter, I think.
Yeah, and so he decides that he is going to talk to the mirror again, or the mirror's talking to him, or watching him watch her. Or no, it's Alice.
So Nave looks at him and she goes, why are you sulking? Like, why, what's got you in a tiff? And then she looks out the window, she sees Gisela, which also, side note, Gisela has not told him her name at all. And that's why we keep getting this creature. He calls her a creature because he doesn't know her name.
Why didn't he ask?
But he never asked, which could be a point for later, that we know that Casimir is his mortal name. It's not his true name. And it's the fact that he tells you true names are for lovers.
Well, but, okay, I get that. But at the same time, he never asks her name, but a name precedes you, and without one, you are nothing. So is she nothing to him?
Is she nothing to him right now? Is he not wanting to know her name because he doesn't deem himself worthy to know yet? Because he doesn't find out her name until she tells him.
Right.
And that's a whole thing. But they do not know her name throughout this story, basically.
Nobody does.
Strangers, yet he gives her a name. But anyways, Nave she sees Gisela and she goes, oh, so you like her.
Yeah. Oh, that's good at least.
That's what this is. And
he's like, he gets reminded that he needs to make her fall in love, and he's like, oh, I will, basically.
Like a teenage boy, he denies it because denial's not just a river in Egypt, even in a fantasy novel.
He's like, I know, I will find a way. And then they're talking about how really he just lusts after her, and lust isn't the same as love.
I know she hates me, but she wants, but she, have you seen how she looks at me?
She wants to get down.
I know.
He's basically like, if I bed her, she'll love me.
They're literally like him going, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah, that's not. And so he says, I don't know. They say, you don't know anything about love. And he says, they say, you should ask the one person in the castle who has been in love before.
But before we even get there, we get this really great line from Nate, which I want to point out, which is, you expect true love, true and devoted love from this woman, and yet you do not plan to give it in return. What part about she hates you do you not understand? You will have to woo her.
Mm-hmm.
But then,
Yep.
yes, the mirror goes, look, you don't want to listen to us? Maybe go listen to somebody who has been in love. Since he
Yep.
threw that insult to them, he's like, well, who have you guys ever wooed?
I love how it's such a random or like rare thing. The one person in the whole castle who has ever been in love.
And of course, it's a prince.
Prince Charming.
But he is though. Okay, he is quite literally Prince Charming, who has taken on the role of like Belle's dad in their Disney version of Beauty and the Beast, because he's the one that steals the rose,
Yes, and he's in a prison.
and he is imprisoned for it. And when Casimir goes to ask him about
This exchange is hilarious.
when he goes to ask him about like, how do I make somebody fall in love with me, the first thing out of this prince's mouth was, she didn't fall in love with you at first sight.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
wow, read him for filth.
It is very funny. Like this entire exchange is hilarious. He's like, "She didn't fall in love with you already? Like, what's your problem, man?"
What do you mean he didn't see you and love you immediately? I
Mhm.
can't relate. But his very, very first, sorry, um, piece of advice. And mind you, to get this piece of advice, what did we have to strike? A bargain. A
And yeah.
bargain for what?
Um,
The greatest desire.
yes, greatest desire. I was like, and his greatest desire he's thinking is freedom. The prince thinks that.
Yeah, which reasonable enough. And but Casimir does add the caveat: if your advice doesn't work,
Yeah.
I will take your hair. Your hair is my. He is literally going to snatch his wig.
Uh-huh, basically.
And before we even get to this advice, we get clue number 2 into Casimir's name, which is a riddle. And this
Yep.
riddle gave me Under the Mountain vibes.
Uh-huh. And I always feel so stupid when writers give us riddles because I'm like, "Ugh, why don't I know? Like, why can't I just figure it out?"
Right now, but then once you know the answer, you're like, oh my god, that's so obvious.
Uh-huh. And you think about it and think about it, and you read into literally everything and can't figure it out. And then finally you know, and you're like, "Ugh, I'm so dumb."
Of course it is. So our riddle, 7 letters, and I'll read this whole little thing he has. I ground my teeth back and forth, not wishing to speak it out loud, but even as I stood here and thought about my true name, I had trouble recalling, because the prince had asked him what Casimir's truest desire was, which is obviously having his name back. I had trouble recalling how it was spelled. 7 letters, I reminded myself. Your name knows no stranger. Your name is the wail on the lips of a birding mother. Your name is the howl from the mouth of a grieving lover. It is the cry that breaks the night when death is summoned. When knowing what I know now,
But it's a very vague riddle.
it makes sense. And I really want to try to scroll up in our messages, which could be a mission, to see what I first sent you thinking his name was. Because I'm pretty sure I sent you some really unhinged thoughts. Because I was trying to think of 7-letter words and was not succeeding.
I'm gonna read the love at first sight part because it's right here and it's funny. So he says, she did not, or he says, did she not fall in love with you at first sight? No, I gritted out. She tried to bury an axe in my chest. And then he says, is that even real? And the Prince Charming says, of course it is, says the prince, who paused to think. Perhaps she's not attracted to you. And then he says, she is attracted to me, he snapped. I knew it. I could feel the air between us. The problem was that she also hated me. Um, and then And then he says, I asked you to make her fall, or tell me how to make her fall in love with you. Um, and then he kind of goes on to think about, what did I do to make my princess fall in love with me, or whatever. And then he suggests that Casimir call her beautiful and tell her that she looks beautiful. And that for sure will work.
Be a start.
That'll go. That'll work work our way towards what we want.
I think the first ever guess I sent you quite literally was inseparable. Unfortunately, is more than 7 letters because I was over him. I'm like, is he inseparable? Because it feels like he is.
Sometimes. He can barely live with himself at this point.
But oh, not at all. The prince is really, any scene we get with the prince, it is with Casimir there, it is comedic relief. It is. Look, we got a lot of crazy other things going on. You need a good laugh.
Yeah, he's pretty freaking funny. It's basically classic fairy tale, like, versus modern fairy tale. So like the love at first sight, blah 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 stuff.
Stereotypical Prince Charming.
Mm-hmm.
He's there because, he was getting a rose for his princess or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I love how clever it was for her to put this in the book because it acknowledges the history of like Disney fairy tale,
Mm-hmm.
but we're in like a Grimm fairy tale, not a Disney fairy tale. You know what I mean? So she was like almost as acknowledging like this is not those like sappy little easy fairy tales. This is a Grimm fairy tale. I like that.
Also, just the stark differences. It was like, oh, that's not how life works.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They're really clouded.
Uh-huh. And the funny thing is this guy is supposed to be the expert on love, right? In the castle. And he's like the one that's the most wrong. Like Casimir is like, what? No, that's not how it works.
We will see his advice put into use right now in chapter 7.
Yep.
But before we
she was sent to change. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Giselle needs to change.
She's wet from the Selkie and not in the good way.
Never in the good way with the Selkie.
No.
She is drenched and she wants nothing more to get out of those clothes, so she does what she saw Nave doing. She's, hello, I need clothes. And these little clothing goblins don't care.
Yeah.
They ignore her and then finally, like, throw her a scrap piece of, like, satin robe.
No, clear robe.
Oh, it's clear?
Yeah. It's sheer.
Here, I was thinking, like, when I'm picturing this robe, I was thinking of, like, scantily wise, like, one of the robes, like, a bride or whatever would get ready in for her wedding day. Very much like a lingerie robe.
Yeah, no, this is a clear, sheer robe. Doesn't hide nothing.
Even better for when our lovely Mr. Casimir comes a-callin'.
Says, are you going to come to dinner?
He goes, well, at first you're wanted. Like, Nave comes and tells her. She tries one more time to get those clothes. And, yeah, no, sorry, can't do that. They're not giving me clothes. She goes, well, if I don't have clothes, I'm not going to dinner.
And that's the whole Beauty and the Beast scene.
I called you. I called for you. And she goes, yeah, you might have called for me, but, like, I don't have clothes.
Yeah.
And he sees what she's wearing.
He's like, oh, damn, yeah, that's not good for dinner.
And he goes, oh, you're going to give her whatever she wants.
And because he starts to think about if anyone else sees her wearing this.
Oh, no, that's for his eyes only.
Exactly. So he's like, this is not, he's like, well, I would like to see her in this. I don't want anyone else seeing her like this, so we need some clothes.
Especially not with what he has planned for her tonight.
Correct. So we have some dinner, which I thought this was kind of interesting that she alludes to the fact that this is the first time she's eaten since she's arrived. Because she
Well,
asked if she can eat the food, if it's safe.
yes, but in the same sense, she's only been there for maybe 12 hours at this point.
Okay. It seems forever.
It does seem forever, but you have to understand, I'm assuming she arrived basically at nighttime that first day because she like woke up from her sleep to meet those elven princes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then she bathes, and then she basically goes to sleep, and that's the end of the first set of
She's
chapters.
got the Selkie all day,
And
basically.
then she's been with Selkie, and now she's back. She's maybe gone at most 24 hours.
All right. I feel better now. I was wanting to make sure that the prisoner was fed.
But she's not a prisoner.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah, she
prisoner's
is.
actually in the dungeon.
We don't have the what do you call it? The Stockholm syndrome yet.
Yeah,
Not
no,
yet.
symptoms like Stockholm syndrome yet. And
It's
it's like
like
wild.
Stockholm interest. It's like,
Yeah,
ooh,
yeah,
he's
yeah. We definitely see a spark. We feel a
hot.
spark. But I'm pretty sure, like, if anything were to happen, it would be out of spite. And something maybe does happen. But more soon.
Mm-hmm. So they have dinner, but she doesn't even eat enough, she says.
Yes, and I think I
She
was
doesn't eat.
expecting this dinner scene also as like one of the first scenes. And again, I'm relating this back to Avatar because it's one of the more recent books I read with this trope
Mhm.
of when they first sat down to eat and Tamlin kind of stopped her from overgorging herself.
Yeah,
Because we have
probably.
to keep in mind, she was spending for herself back in Elk. Nobody cared about her.
And this is like the best tasting food she's ever had, so like we have to like be careful.
So
Yeah.
maybe she was kind of holding herself back as to not gorge herself
Hmm.
and make herself sick, which he wouldn't have mind because then she couldn't go back to the Selkie.
That's right. Exactly. So the whole point we find out of this evening is to try to make sure that she doesn't have the energy or the ability to go back to the Selkie because she says, I'm going to go back and see him again tomorrow.
She makes that known. They talk about it during dinner, and oh, this is when our little advice comes into play. During dinner, he finally musters the courage to tell her that, oh, you really are beautiful.
Hmm.
And excuse me while I pull up these quotes, because when
I
I was
might.
hollering.
Um.
Ugh, where is it?
Oh, I have it. Let's see. You are beautiful, he said after a long moment of silence. I was in the middle of biting into another grape when he spoke, and I froze at his words and their stiff sound. It was as if he was forcing himself to speak them. Excuse me? I said you look beautiful. His brows were low, his features tense, and yet he continued to hold my gaze as we spoke. Why do you seem so angry about it? I'm not, he snapped. I told you you were beautiful. Be grateful. And then she says, fuck you.
Which, okay, so that whole, like, that was giving nice guy energy. And I mean nice guy in the derogatory way.
Yeah. Be grateful. I'm being nice to
I'm
you.
complimenting you, you're gonna like it. It is, our good sir took flirting 101 with Tamlin as the professor.
Unfortunately. For
Unfortunately. Um, he'll make up for it, I promise.
uh-huh.
Hang in there.
And then he asked the question, who hurt you?
Oh, it came back as if he's just trying to, instead of a smooth recovery and an I'm sorry, an apology, who hurt you?
Which is gonna win over any of the book talk girlies, so
Which,
it
like,
kind of
won
works.
us over, that's fine. But you haven't won her over. She still hates you. And
And
what's
she's not gonna tell him.
no, and she even questions herself, why am I trying to protect Roland? Or just, like, why am I trying to protect him?
Oh.
Like,
Maybe
he
she still has. Or
hurts.
maybe she still thinks she's gonna go back, and she doesn't want to create more trouble for herself.
But, and she even brings up, she says this, I was quiet for a moment, uncertain of what to say. It was not that I wanted to protect Roland. It was more that I did not wish to share my life with this prince. Oh, wish came up again.
Ooh, uh-oh.
Still, Roland had chosen me to break the curse of the well, and he had done so believing He could pose as my rescuer. I could make this go away. Marry me.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, And then she kind of probably, I mean, if it were me, I would have like a bad taste in my mouth about all men after like reliving that in my brain.
Oh,
And I would not want any man near me at that point.
yeah.
So she kind of is like, eh.
And he kind of gives that, like, typical abusive, like, typical response, trauma response of, oh, I just fell. I fell down the well.
Yep. And it was her mistake. I fell.
I fell. I fell down the stairs.
And he's like, is that how my brother, he kind of like gives it to her, you know?
Like, is that how my brother died? And she was, well,
You squash him with yourself.
well. And then he asks for more information. He wants to know the details. And she goes into those details. Well, he even goes, who told you to kill him? And it's like, was it who threw you down the well? I'm going to learn his name. And he makes the promise, I will learn his name.
And she doesn't mention the crone, by the way, which feels on purpose. Not on purpose for her, but on purpose by the author.
Yes, because now we were told it came from the crone, but who knows? Roland could have been lying at his butt.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's for certain in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she even had that moment of hesitation. And he goes, no, it was the same person. Don't worry, I'm going to figure out who it was. I will handle it. But from there, we get one of our favorite things where we learn that, does he blame her for his brother's death? Absolutely. She killed him. But she was asking the right question. And the right question was, ask me if I care.
Which she doesn't understand because she does care about her sister's death.
And here's where we kind of get, she asks, well, do your brothers care? And he goes, I guess they do, because why would they send you here?
For other reasons.
Because they're assholes, that's why.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, have you ever cared for anyone? I love that.
And I care for myself. That's all I need. I'm all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course you would.
Mm-hmm.
Just punch him hit a man while he's already down.
Mm-hmm. It just, you know.
Wait, can I just say, I am very upset that when this all went down with the whole beautiful thing and this ended on fuck you, his response was, you really do, don't you? Or one of those, a very Rhysand response of, you will soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. He's he's very, I feel like Scarlett St. Clair writes her men very, sly. Very, smooth men.
And it's a fit.
Uh-huh.
But no, we just had to go with the who hurt you trope, which I'm not complaining about. I love a good who hurt you trope.
I mean, who wouldn't want one? And then he calls her creature. I can't get over the pet names. I'm a huge pet name person, a pet name freak in the book realm. So I love when he calls her creature, or vicious creature, or all the creatures.
All forms of creature are acceptable currency here.
Which I did not realize on the first read that was because he didn't even know her name.
Yeah, well, and it was something I picked up at the very, very end reading through it. I'm just like, wait, you're just now telling him your name?
Yep, and the author really, easily steps around it. You don't even notice.
And it also drives home that, names are a very big part of this book.
Mm-hmm.
As we'll learn in a little bit about Wolf and his name. The Selkie never gets a name. The prince never gets a name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised Knave has a name and it's not just the brownie.
Right. My brownie, or something.
None of these outside individuals are named individuals. They're just whatever their species is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it drives home how important a name is, and only certain people are allowed to speak that name.
And the princes all have at least human
Mortal
names
names.
or mortal names. Mm-hmm.
Because I have a whole theory on if those are actually their names or not.
So then they go to dance with the fairies and drink
Oh,
fairy wine.
it's under the mountains all over again.
I know, and she dances and dances and kind of falls into like a stupor, basically.
Falls into his arms first, where he almost kisses her.
But doesn't.
And then into darkness.
Falling short. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To which we wake up on our second day in the castle.
And this is when we go to the Glass Mountain. So she hurries down to the Selkie.
After noticing her feet are blistered and is
Yes.
in pain, but this pain is not going to stop her.
Which, by the way, did you realize that the Selkie was trying to help her when he told her to put her feet in the pond?
Yes.
And she's
Actually,
like, that's a trick.
huh?
She's like, that's a trick. But really, it's not. He's actually trying, like, the pond will actually heal her feet, it seems.
And it did, I think.
It did when she drank from it. But he was trying to help her.
We learned this pond is, you learn so much about it. So many
Right.
things.
It's the Selkie's pond, but it's not necessarily like the Selkie's magic. It's just the Selkie's pond.
Yeah. Which, where'd the pond get its magic from? Who knows?
So he says that her ride is going to arrive, her wings, but they got hungry or something or thirsty and went
Yeah,
to go.
you took too long.
Mm-hmm.
But put your feet in this pond. I see you were dancing in a fairy circle, a fairy ring.
And she says, no, that's a trick.
Yeah. And she's immediately like, she goes, I want to go to the Glass Mountain. And he goes, you have to wait. Are you lying to me? No. You need to be patient.
Mm-hmm. It's like dealing with customer service at the bus station.
And then learn that her wings, this person who's coming to help her, is another bargain that he's calling in. Somebody who owes him a favor.
And is Wolf.
It's
Wolf the bird.
the Raven.
Yeah, Wolf the raven.
Is he a raven?
I think so, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Wolf the Raven. To which she's sitting there going, "You're named Wolf." And like, oh, I was once a wolf.
Yeah, it's a weird. And then he doesn't really have a name though. He was named after what he was, a wolf.
Hmm.
But he kept that even when he turned into a bird, which is interesting.
Well, and this is also where we learn about fairyland.
Mm-hmm.
So, she's kind of trying to get more information out of the Selkie of what he knows about Casimir. To which she's like, "Oh, you're on a first name basis with him? Oh, fancy pants bitch McGee over here." And he goes, "Well, he told me I had to call him." He goes, "And you listened to him?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, what?
Uh-huh.
And she's like, "Oh, so you just don't know anything. That's why you're being dismissive. You don't know it."
At all. Mm-hmm.
He goes, "I know him like we all know him. But there's dangers to speaking rumors and as truth, especially in fairyland." Which,
Fairyland.
Fairyland. Oh, I guess fairyland is what we call this place. And B, so nobody's lying to her?
Right.
That confirms that nobody can lie to her. There's dangers in speaking rumors as truth.
Mm-hmm.
What are those dangers? You get cursed, I'm assuming.
Yep. And then he tells a little bit of what he knows. The prince is cursed like all his brothers, because it's kind of like fact of the land at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The prince is cursed like all of his brothers. Some are cursed to despise, some are cursed to pine, but only one is cursed to die.
The frog.
Right. And then she says, who cursed them? And then I found this super interesting. He says, who didn't? So
to me, that reads as they're not all cursed by the same person.
Right. So Casimir's by the Glass Mountains.
Casimir with the glass mountains, so who's cursing the other ones? Also, some are cursed to pine, some are cursed to, what was it? I lost it. I was just looking at it. To despise.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Casimir cursed for both? He both despises and has the almost. He, out of all of them, is the only one that can actually die.
Yeah, because he's more, whatever, or he will be.
They're all immortal, but he's the only one who can actually die if his name is forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking back to that, is the toad cursed to pine?
Maybe. Who knows?
Because they're immortal, they can't die, they get reincarnated.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's a mystery.
But then she wants to know about him and how he ended up in the pond. To which we get the Selkie's backstory.
Blah, blah, blah. Which I'm not sure is really that, like, true. Because I'm pretty sure Casimir gives, like, a more detailed...
We do get something more detailed, which is like, oh, he had to plant it and then it grew in my garden and therefore he belonged to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say. But he's like, oh, they stole my...
Selkie?
Yeah.
I believe that Casimir says that he lured some woman and murdered her from his court.
Oh, yes. Which, again, how much do we trust this? And he just told us, careful speaking rumors as truth.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that, because that's foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
But in comes Wolf the Raven.
Wolf the Raven, an odd name for a bird.
A very odd name for a bird.
Mm-hmm.
But how is she supposed to ride the bird?
By the way, I also love that the bird calls her Thing. And she says, Thing is not my name. That's my favorite, like, he calls her Thing.
It's nice to meet you, Thing.
Thing is not my name.
Well, as he even says, Thing, that's how the Selkie introduces her. Thing, meet Wolf the Raven.
Yep, so Selkie doesn't know her name either.
Thing's not my name. Wolf's not his name either.
Weird. It's a whole name thing. But anyway, yes. So she drinks from the pond to shrink down so the raven can carry her, which is such a Alice in Wonderland thing. And they assure her that when she comes back and she drinks the pond again, she will get bigger.
And so they go off to the Glass Mountain where she strikes another bargain.
Which, this one is weird. The Glass Mountains are weird. So they speak in her head, and they ask for 3 strands of Casimir's hair off of his head. Do they just say hair, or do they say hair off of his head?
I am looking for that right now, because...
I'm thinking she gives them a different kind of hair.
That becomes a thing later. I've come to learn the true name of the thorns.
Da, da, da.
It says... Oh, I just skipped over it. Bring me 3 hairs from the head of the Prince of Thorns, and I will tell you his true name. To which he goes, why do they want?
Which I think it says ends up saying later in the book, but I can't remember, to be honest. It's something weird.
Of why they want his hair? I don't even remember that part.
I believe later in the book, I don't think it's like a spoiler, I'm pretty sure Casimir is mad about it because it gives them information or something on him.
I know he's mad about her going, and I think we see that actually later in these chapters.
Correct. It's later in the book.
Because the mountains end up with part of her. So that they can call to her. But I would think that with him being from the mountains, they would already have part of him, no?
You'd think.
I don't know.
But I'm also confused. We can get there when we get back to the mountain because I'm also confused about something else with that. So we'll see.
It's coming up. So she gets this journey. They fly on back. She drinks from the pond, the murky pond, mind you. This pond was described as the murky. But drinks from it, returns to full size.
Yes.
and somehow like strikes a deal at some point to be able to be taken back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she drinks and immediately throws up this pond water.
Yeah, and then the fairies are mad. Apparently, it'll make the fairies mad.
Supposed to do,
Yeah, they don't like when you muck up their space.
which is
So the
important,
fairies are gonna get her.
and they do.
They do.
Uh,
So then we switch to Casimir
yes, Casimir,
again.
and a
This is
very fun
crazy.
chapter.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to remember exactly how it comes. So, he goes to her room because he's sure that she had not gone to see the Selkie because her feet were in such bad shape, which the pond healed. But he's not aware of this. So the mirror calls him an idiot. They have a little quick conversation. And the mirror's kind of giving him crap for acting the way that he is in
Well,
general.
and he really goes, "You try talking to her; she's impossible.
Which is just a nice thing to say.
She can't be any worse than you are."
Hmm.
But when she comes in, I told her she was beautiful, and she threw wine in my face.
And then
How
he
did
asked
I tell
if he
her?
thinks he is beautiful too. And then he says that as if my raging erection wasn't evidence enough. It sounds like he's basically had an erection since she walked in the
She
door.
showed
It's unhealthy. He needs to go see his doctor if it's been more than like 12 hours or something.
what doctors? They all need to see a therapist at this point.
Worse. The mountains
The
are
mountain.
wrong.
And again, so then the mirror tells him, the mirror tells him straight up, she doesn't know you. She's not going to fall in love with a stranger.
Take her on a picnic.
Take her on a picnic. Disney, I'm like quickly skimming because does he go back to the prince in this chapter?
I don't believe so. He
No.
goes straight back to her because he's like, she can't walk, but the mirror seems to know that she went to the Selkie.
Yeah. Where is she? Fucking mirror.
Hmm.
He's like upset because he cannot find her in her room.
Hmm.
Oh, to which he's like, he is caught red-handed, her robe to his face.
Yeah.
As
And she walks in and
he
she's like, what
walks in.
the
And like, honestly, panty sniffer energy.
hmm. And then the funny thing is he goes, "You returned with those feet," and she goes, "Of course, with my feet. Whose else would I have had?"
It's one of those like, some of the dialogue in this is just like, yeah, Captain Obvious.
Yeah, duh.
Like, what else? Like, it is taken at face value. There is
Hmm.
no deeper thought into it.
He gets all protective about the Selkie. He's like, "Did you bargain with him?" Blah blah blah. She's like, "Not real. I mean, not about what he's asking, but she did kind of bargain with him a little. So she kind of lies actually at this point. Then he calls her sweet creature.
Ugh,
Ooh.
do not speak, I will hate you more.
Uh-huh.
Because that's possible.
There is nothing I want from you except my freedom. And then he says, "Are you certain of that creature?"
But we get into this. We're getting hot and heavy. And
Hmm.
as they are going, she pauses and she says, "Give me a letter and I will relieve you of this misery."
Hmm. And he's like, "Oh, damn. Okay."
And he says, "You."
Uh-huh.
The
And it's
letter,
me.
you. And then immediately on your knees.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay, we're over with that. Underneath. Now he does give it to her before she relieves him.
And that's the second time he's done that.
So he trusts her to follow through. Or at least he would probably maybe he can't curse her, but she doesn't know that. But maybe she thinks that if she doesn't follow through, she'd be cursed anyway. So, she gets busy on her knees and she does the thing. And it's spicy, so you should read it.
You should read it. And then it finishes saying, a letter for each time you wish to come by my hands.
Don't do nothing for free. Just kidding.
You know, you presume too much. Tell me that when I'm on my knees again.
Exactly. She's very confident that he can't make it through more days. This is like the most sure lead she's got going at this point.
Oh, 100%. And then she kicks him out.
She's like, bye-bye.
Just no. Whatever. But come
when I call.
Or I will come find you. Is that a threat?
So I didn't exactly catch where in this scene that she ripped hair from him. And that's why I was thinking I wasn't sure that it was from his head.
One was. And the mountains even say one was from his head.
Yeah, the others were not from his head.
Were not from his head if you catch our flow.
So she goes back to the Selkie. And she makes a bargain with the Raven. Similar to her bargain with the Selkie. To take her back to the mountains, because when she is queen, or not queen, lady of this, princess of this place, she will return him to being a wolf.
But before we get there.
Oh, I'm skipping.
Before we get there, she first asks the Selkie to call him. And the Selkie becomes a Selkie.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yes. So the wolf does it kind of just to be nice. But yes, the Selkie, for some reason, he knew that the mountains asked for hair. Which is interesting.
And I don't remember if she stated it or not, but not only did he know if the mountains asked for hair, like, he was determined to get this hair for himself.
And why?
What would it have given him?
Yeah, why?
So it was really odd that he would want it.
Was he going to make his own bargain with the mountains?
But he also snuck up on her this time.
And tried to drown her.
He sneaks up on her and she goes, hey, can you call for Wolf? He goes, oh, so you have it? And then he catches a mark on her neck, which I'm assuming is a hickey. She covered her skin, and she even says, I never told you about the hairs. And then he launched himself at her.
Which I'm starting to think that Casimir and the Selkie had a lover in common.
Oh.
The jealousy between these two is ridiculous. Like, why would we even mention the mark that was on her neck from the Selkie? Or not from the Selkie, but like in front of the Selkie. Why does it matter to him?
I saw that as Selkies being just like siren, their own vein. They're like a different version of a siren. They are trying to seduce and prey upon.
Yeah.
And
it's just
which is
weird
those things that catch
jealous. It's weird that he's so jealous of her, of like both, not the Selkie, but the prince is so jealous of the Selkie. Strange.
But then he begins to grope.
Fun though.
Her words, not mine.
Yes. And then he is able to get free. I can't quite remember why.
He called the wolves and both the wolf and Casimir to help.
That's right. So she drinks the water quick, shrinks down, jumps on Wolf's back.
And Wolf immediately takes her to the mountains.
And then once they're done with the mountains, that's when he makes the bargain.
Yes. So they're at the mountains, and she even asks her, she goes, why did you save me? And he says, because you will marry the prince. Like, point blank, very, like, this is common knowledge.
Like, we all know, maybe it's been, like, prophesied or whatever.
And she goes, and when you do, I shall be a wolf once more.
Then she gives the hair to the mountains. A hole opens up. She drops it in, and they go. It's basically like in Aladdin when the thing goes, infidel.
You think Aladdin? I think, Little Shop of Horrors because the line "Feed me, mortal," and the only thing in my head is "Feed me, Seymour."
Yeah, so they're like, infidel, these are not the right hairs, blah blah blah. There's only one. You tried to trick us, mortal.
But she says, "You promised me his name."
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Haha, it's not a trick.
Uh-huh.
The hair came from his head. Only one came from his head.
The others did not.
And now you must pay for your deceit.
And she loses a finger.
Only flesh will suffice." Which now makes me wonder if all of those sacrifices she was making to where she thought she was sacrificing to the forest
It's really the
was
mountain.
really sacrificing to the mountains even though they were further away.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Because if they're requiring a flesh sacrifice, and then
Yeah.
and then that also brings back how Casimir got cursed of blood, mixing blood. Did
Mm-hmm.
he try to make a sacrifice of flesh that was not his to give?
And why does the mountain want his hair?
Maybe, listen, the mountain could be into some freaking things.
I mean, the finger, the hair.
Specifically,
Woo, okay. So then the wolf is basically like, there's nothing else we can do. Like,
let's
let's go.
let's go before things get worse.
And so then she lands and she notices that the Selkie's head is on a pipe.
Oh, Casimir is holding the
Oh,
silk
Cassie's
in,
holding it. Yeah. Yep. And he dead. Casimir's like, I killed him.
and but how did you know?
You
You called
called.
and I came.
Which is what is that like TikTok sound? It's like she's like, you came, and then it's like, you called or whatever. It's basically that exact thing.
Part of me is like in her head, she's leaving for this. Even though she goes, "Wolf, Casimir," and you're like, no one's gonna know. How is he gonna know? Nobody's gonna know. You knew, and it's the first instance where she's ever called out for help and help actually came to her. She's used to fending for herself.
And the last thing is she falls into his chest and cries.
And
So she's
dare
looking for his comfort.
dare I say, the Stockholm syndrome is Stockholming.
Aha! Cha-ching. Red flag.
It's that line itself, red flag. But in that line itself, you call and I came. I think that shows her just enough trust of I can rely on him.
Yeah, anyone helped.
The people I called for, they were here.
Now she might give him Roland's name. Who knows? Because at this point, like, boom, Selkie hurts you, dead.
I
Here's his.
did it the first time you asked me in the bath.
He doesn't have to do a mic drop because he can do a head drop.
Let me not. There was so much that happened in these chapters.
I know, and I haven't even read any more, and it's been like almost a year. Well, not almost a year, maybe like a couple months since I've really read this. So I don't even really remember. I remember a couple details of what happens next, but that's about it.
I turned to the next page, and it's very promising that the first thing my eyes went to were the words, "I hate you." At this point, somebody, please, I will forever love you if you can tally up and tell me how many times the phrase, "I hate you."
I think so far 3 times. This will be the 3rd time. Maybe 4th.
Because if it tallies up to 7.
Seriously.
But
that's our reading for the week. It's good. Honestly, like all the bargains and the characters and how like everything is so like tricky and can turn at you at any moment. It's great.
it's
Get too comfortable.
I can't wait to kind of dive into the next group because now the going's getting good.
And it's gonna keep going, and she's gonna keep getting those letters for those acts of service.
You know, that's her love language.
I mean, seriously, I unfortunately it is the best route she's got because the mountains just took her fingers, so
It
at least he's
might,
not doing
it might come to bite her in the butt.
that. All right, so until next week, tune in. We'll see you later.